few days since my first analysis of Sam Brown. And part of that is because of other videos that I've ended up making, last minute ideas. But also, I have to confess, I realised from looking at the view count on my other videos that having swamped YouTube with a bunch of videos all at once, that it appeared that no one was actually getting notified of any of the videos. So I thought I'd give it a few days to just settle down before I started putting some more solid Kiely content back out. So this is part 2 of looking at statements made by Sam Brown during the period of time when Kiely was missing.
Folks who have tips, again, I'll emphasize what was said by my partners. We need people to call into the tip line, provide information, and do a good job. We're extremely lucky here. We're in Nevada County right now. I know we're partnered with Placer County. I could probably say the same for their community as well, just because I've seen the folks that are coming here and it's a mixture. We're extremely lucky to have real positive, good community members that are coming together for the right reasons, and I think that's really important. We had some conversation earlier with local radio about what's going on in community, and that there's some what we maybe refer to as bad players on the internet providing bad information or antagonizing like certain things, and really I would just hope that people don't continue to do that, and that we're looking for how do we have the best progress and make some gains on this extremely difficult situation.
Now, well, we can recognise that there is that element amongst content creators of individuals who are bad players. And hey, right now we could all think of an example of someone who is a bad player putting out information that's just not just misinformation, but slightly kooky information. And I'm not sure if he is speaking to anything specific at this time, but I do want to point something out. He said this specifically in the context of them having gone to local radio to put information out. And we know that from the get-go, they just weren't interested in having any sort of relationship with individuals on social media who could have actually been beneficial for the case. So other law enforcement agencies actually have acknowledged the benefits of social media for moving a case forward, and have acknowledged that this is something that's not going away, and that it needs to be a part of modern day policing, and that if done effectively, it can actually help move cases forward. What these guys did from the get-go was just treat social media in a negative way. Yeah, we heard him brag about how the case was being covered by in the UK and across the world or something, but I'm pretty certain that he's referring to the Sun newspaper in the UK. And let's be honest, there is just as much of an issue with mainstream media putting out misinformation and getting facts wrong as there is with social media doing that same thing. The thing is, what you're going to see is there are a lot of people who, in social media, who thoroughly research before they talk. Whereas a lot of people in mainstream media will just get the bare facts and then try and fill in the gaps, and they get it wrong. Or they really don't pay that much attention to what's going on. Look at Fox News reporting that Jagger was Kiely's boyfriend, and the amount of confusion caused by that when the rest of the world knew, thanks to social media and thanks to YouTubers particularly, that Kylie and Jagger were actually broken up. So I find it frustrating that they had such a negative outlook towards social media from the get-go. And I think it is poor form, and that it could have actually made a difference in Kylie's case. Let's not forget that it was a team from a YouTube channel that found Kylie at the end of all this.
I know, speaking for myself and for a lot of the folks on our team, it's tiring for law enforcement as well, and we want to be able to supply all the right answers, especially to the family, and it's hard to look somebody in the face and tell them you don't have those answers. So once again, I'd encourage the public, if people know something, say something, bring us forward some information, and until we get that, we're going to continue to go through clues and digital data and all those things to help move our search in the right way.
So he talked here about continuing to go through digital data to try and find more clues. Now, this is important, and I think this is something that we've overlooked, or something that we've really not paid enough attention to. What he's telling us here is that they did have more than just knowledge of the last location of Kylie's phone and the last ping. Because that's not something that you would be going through continuously. That would be one bit of information that you've gleaned, full stop, end of story, no more digital data. But he is specifically talking about continuing to go through digital data. So they do have other digital data. So this is the 10th of August, so we're 3 or 4 days into the search here, meaning that they probably have by now accessed data from cell towers. They may also have geofencing data, and I believe it was Josh Barnhart mentioned that they had been asking for teens to bring their phones in to have data lifted off their phones. So there's a machine that they basically plug the phones into, and it pretty much downloads the entire phone. So we know that they did have some digital data, even at this point in the case. So why then did we still not have anyone being prosecuted for Kylie's death?
And I believe we'll probably do some more Q&A at the end, but thank you.
A dog team was sent out this morning. Why today, and will you continue to send that team out in the future?
Sure.
Yeah, dog teams were sent out, but I believe they were also sent out on previous days as well. We're just exhausting any types of options, and there's various types of dogs, tracking dogs, evidence dogs, and unfortunately, in the needs of these things, we send out cadaver dogs as well to just cover all bases, because we're not putting anything off of the table.
Now, this is important information. He's talking about that they have actually sent out dog teams on numerous occasions. He was asked about them having sent a dog team out that day, but he mentions them having done so on previous days as in plural. So they've used dog teams a few times. He hasn't told us what locations that's been, but the inference that we can make also is that there have been different dog teams sent out, because he talks about the different types of dog teams. And he also specifically mentions having sent cadaver dogs out. So to me, that says that they have searched the Prosser area looking for Kylie with dogs on a few different days, and in that area they've taken the cadaver dogs. Now, they would have taken them to the area that the party supposedly occurred, which means that if something did happen to Kiely there at the party, then she most likely was not deceased in that location unless she was deceased in her car. Because, as morbid as this sounds, when a person dies, the process of decomposition starts relatively soon. And you're talking about a matter of minutes after which a dog can scent death. So to me, that is saying if we can presume that if they were going to send in cadaver dogs, they would have almost certainly gone to the party area, then that is telling us that either Kiely did not die in the area of the party, or she died in her car, or of course she died somewhere else. This brings back into question the talk of an after party, and of course it also brings into question the suggestion that something happened and Kiely didn't necessarily die immediately. I know these are horrible things to talk about, but if we're going to look at all this, we need to really dig into it and look at what is truly being said here by law enforcement. Now, something else to consider here. Now, obviously this depends on what locations they took the dogs to. But let's not forget that where they eventually found Kiely's vehicle was, I believe, 200 feet or something. It wasn't a huge distance from the party location. And one thing we do know is that cadaver dogs can actually detect remains underwater to a considerable depth. They can also, if there is a current, sense that there are remains. Now, we've seen from some of the drone footage, etc., that there was some amount of current on Prosser Reservoir. We've also seen that there was quite a lot of searching happening, specifically in the area where they found Kiely's vehicle. And don't forget, that is the area that was marked as being where her phone last pinged. So if they had cadaver dogs in at Prosser, would they have taken them right up to the water's edge? Because had Kiely's vehicle been in that location and a dog had been at the edge of the water there, it should have alerted. Also, given the currents, even if it wasn't specifically in that location, had it been taken down to the edge of the water, there's a good chance that a dog would have alerted to the presence of remains in that reservoir. Now, I can't say that's conclusive because we don't know where it was that they took those dogs in. But it is interesting when you consider that the location of the final ping from Kiely's phone pretty much was the location where they found her vehicle, and he's talking about having had cadaver dogs in. Wouldn't you focus on the last known location and the area of the last ping?
I didn't mention it earlier, but we have swimmers in the water literally looking for evidence and things like that on locations that we think might have something. And we're trying everything that we can. So there are human beings in the water swimming and coming back trying to provide intel based off of what they can see in the water as well. And so far still no clues that are ending up from those.
And so those divers and swimmers will continue in the next few days, to your knowledge?
Yeah, as long as we have a reason to believe that we're using that resource for the right way and with some purpose.
Now we know that the swimmers were only a small distance from the shoreline. So we know that that has no bearing whatsoever on the case in terms of if they would have seen Kiely's vehicle. Other than this, he's talking about them having swimmers in, not wanting to disturb the bottom. Here's the thing. The edge of that reservoir is muddy. We've seen images of vehicles that were stuck in the mud. We know that locals have told us how easy it is for people to become stuck in the mud there. So, logically, were there swimmers in the area where Kiely's vehicle had supposedly already gone into the water? Should they have not seen tyre tracks under the water if they were trying very hard not to disturb the surface? We're talking only 4 days after Kiely went missing. So if there were any tyre tracks in the mud at that point in time, there should have been some evidence still of those tyre tracks, given what we know about vehicles tending to become stuck in the mud, because they wouldn't have just been shallow tyre tracks. They would have been deep enough for a vehicle to have gotten stuck, from what we know. But we have nothing here about these divers seeing anything that could be seen or considered as tyre tracks. Not divers, the swimmers, seeing anything that could be considered as tyre tracks when they were trying very hard not to disturb the bottom of the reservoir. Now we know also from photos that the divers were actually diving further out, which begs the question, how come they would not have seen Kiely's vehicle? Surely if you're putting divers in the reservoir, you would start with the last known location. That spot that is neither on land or water where her phone last pinged.
You said the searches have been unsuccessful. What's your new tactic moving forward?
I wouldn't say that they're unsuccessful. Anytime you're searching an area and you don't find something, you also are clearing an area that may not have something. So it's still purposeful.
If you read between the lines there, you can see that even at this point in time, he was still super defensive about their inability to find Kiely. And I do want to point something out. Perhaps he is justified in feeling defensive about their inability to find Kiely, because one comment that we have heard made, and I'm not sure if it's on all these audios, all these clips that I've put together, or if it was in a newspaper article, but one thing that was made clear is that it's the Tahoe area and they are quite used to doing searches in summer and in winter, and that their searches aren't usually unsuccessful. So perhaps he is justified in feeling a little bit defensive, because this is the first time when their search has not been successful within a matter of days. What does that tell us?
Was sonar used in the lake at all in the search?
Yes.
Let's just highlight that one question. Was sonar used in the lake at all in the search? And there was a definitive yes. And we know that there were multiple agencies out there with their boats searching, including Washoe County with their underwater robot thing, which also has sonar. So yes, sonar was used on the reservoir. So down the track, when he fumbles around and says, well, I'm not really sure if sonar was used, tries to avoid answering that sonar was used, there's your answer right there.
Her house is pretty remote. How extensively has the road out to her house been searched and the area off that?
I'm going to have Captain Brown discuss that.
Yeah, the question was about how extensively has the road been searched, because it is pretty treacherous, if you would. It's been flown with hours and hours of helicopter. It's been driven with dirt bikes, patrol vehicles, you name it. We probably put it on the road, and today they're extensively, I believe, still working on a ground search through the same area.
Now obviously that's an area that's further away from Prosser Reservoir, but once again we go back to hours and hours of helicopters flying the area. And we know from the flight paths, even though we can't access all the flight paths, sadly, but we know that there were so many times that helicopters and planes flew over Prosser Reservoir. So going back to hours and hours of helicopters and planes flying over the entire area. Okay, so admittedly we've got to the end of the second video and we still haven't gone beyond the 10th of August. But this is a good spot to stop here because the next lot of clips come from the first of the community meetings, the one that was held on the 10th of August, the same day as this particular press conference. So it makes a good break if we stop here and then continue on looking at things that were said in the community meetings. So please leave your comments below. Let me know your thoughts on what I've discussed here in this particular video. If you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. It helps me get this video out into the algorithm. And of course, please leave a comment because it's the comments that help get my videos seen. And if we are having issues once again with my videos not showing up for people who usually follow my videos, then you leaving comments on my videos will help to make them more visible to those people who aren't getting to see them. So thank you and stay tuned. Part 3 will be coming very, very soon.
I've been